Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of magnetic service. There would be those who would say that this is not possible. There are always those who say that the human being can never do such a thing. And I say again to you that those who have the energy here, of the talents to see the colors, don't know better. Proof is difficult in the 3D mind, for you expect to see other things, do you not? For this is the voice that has been with you all of the day. This is the voice of my partner. This is the voice that is the human being, and suddenly it's supposed to be the voice of a being from beyond the veil. We say to you that this is so, but not beyond the veil, not something odd, not something strange. For those of you who can feel the energy, know that it is being enhanced. This is the voice from home. It is a voice like no other voice, for this one has a third language connected to it. This one speaks to the human heart, to the higher self of each of you. Let it be known this, the truth of the words here. Let them not hit your mind. Let them instead hit your heart. Let them be interpreted by that part of you which we call the higher self. But then you'll relax with these things. I am Kryon, I know where I am. It is not odd that I would speak to humanity in this way. It is not odd that I speak to you in this way. My words are being read, and I know who's reading them. And so these are for you, out of the time of those who are here, who are listening with their ears in real time. For this message is timeless. The message we have, indeed, is a continuation of one we had before. For 2 weeks ago in your time, we gave you a message, a channeling, called Current Events. We spoke of what you'd done. We spoke of the energy of the moment, and now we wish to continue and give you the energy that can be. And we're going to start with the history of what has been. But before we do that, we're not ready to begin. Not the teaching, not yet. There are those here who don't believe this is happening. This is the human being pretending, they say. In their minds they're saying, what is this for me? They look at the clock, they wonder when it'll be done. I know who you are, dear one. Loved beyond measure you are, and I would like a message directly to you when you leave this place in unbelief. Listen to me. When you leave this place in unbelief, the same number of angelic beings are going to walk out with you as walk out with a healer. And the reason for your unbelief, dear human being, is that you don't want to open the jar. Because you know if you did, what's in there. Eons, seemingly, of spiritual learning. A time that was not easy when you opened the jar the last time. It didn't end well, did it? And that is available for some of you to see. And it's all been blocked, and you find yourself in a meeting like this in disbelief, complete and total. And then you join the ranks of my partner who sat through innumerable amounts of these meetings in disbelief until the seeds made sense to him and they grew accordingly in his own time, with his own logic, with his own heart. And you can have that if you choose or not. And that is the beauty of the free choice of the human being. Blessed are you, unbeliever, for I know your name, and it is beautiful. And you'll see me again. And when you do, there will be no judgment. None at all. None at all. It is about the test of energy on this planet. And we have told you before that you sit in a place that is magnificent in its poignant potential. The things that could be are. Let me show you what is before you. Right now. Right now. If you took a look, a snapshot at where the magnetics are, based upon what we said they would be, you would find a totally and different, changed planet. For when I arrived in 1989, the magnetic attributes of the grid were not as they are now. We gave you the potentials of the shift, and it is here. We told you that it was possible, indeed probable, that there would be a 12-year cycle of movement of the magnetic grid, and there was. And the grid moved appropriately, not because God deemed it, because humanity deemed it. It was the 87 harmonic convergence which placed upon the earth a mandate for the magnetics to move, and human consciousness did it. You assign these things to some superpower from beyond, not understanding the power that you have. Even as you sit there, you don't know you can move mountains, and you can. And so the magnetics moved, and you can see it today, and where it ended up is perfect. For this is the attribute that speaks to the DNA that you need to have now. For the tools at hand are much, much different than they were when you were born. That's why some of you are here and some of you are saying, this is the energy I've waited for. And you're right, it is. Some of you said, this is the energy of shift and change, and you're right, it is. And if you wanted any further proof about the magnetics, I'll say to you, go do some science. Look up some things. Here's one. The heliosphere of the sun. What is it doing right now? Where is it right now? And you'll be shocked to find out, if you don't already know, it is at its lowest ebb ever. The heliosphere of the sun, that is to say, the magnetics of the sun, is its lowest point it has ever been on the planet. That is to say, then, that it is less than it was, just like the magnetic grid. For if you measure the Gauss of the grid, you're going to find it has gone down. That is to say, it is not as strong as it was. It is more finite. And so is that being sent from the sun. And there's a reason, dear human beings, because they're being finely tuned in an elegant way to speak to your DNA, just like we said. Go find it. Take a look. You cannot deny what we told you would happen when you look at it today, and it's happened. And this is what we have that we did not when we came in, and that is to say, track record. And the track record is all about what you've created for you. It is magnificent, is it not? To see what humanity has done for humanity. And it starts with the lighthouses, like those in the room, like those reading this, listening to this. You have to understand that these are the things we told you were potentially doable and potentially manifestable by those that would carry enough light to shine it in dark places. Not so that there would be those who would convert to your belief system. Not so there would be those who would come to these meetings or sit in these chairs. Not so that there would be many, many more reading these words. But so that light would be spread on this planet so that others could see in the dark and discover whatever they needed to discover. How about integrity? How about integrity? If you've looked at the consciousness of the planet and what we have called the indigo children, they are children of the new consciousness. Call them whatever you want. How do you explain that? When we told you that humanity's consciousness would shift, and you see before you all children in all countries, speaking all languages that are different. Just ask the parents, just ask the teachers. A worldwide phenomenon is occurring. The children are different, dear ones, because they have to be in order to create what is coming. It's here. These things we told you were possible are here. And recently, look at what you have done. I speak now, again, basically and mainly and appropriately to Americans who sit here, who listen, who read. For this is the country I am talking to at the moment. And I again remind you of this: you have done the impossible. You've chosen an indigo leader. And so there will be different thinking. Thinking that is out of the box that you might expect. And this would not have been possible 20 years ago. And we have said that before. What you have done is to set up the potentials of what we always saw. Let me tell you, dear ones, you would never, ever be able to graduate into those places we said that you would be without this man. He came along at the appropriate time, and you put him in office at the appropriate time, and we saw that coming. And if you go and look for it, you could even find it in the channeling of the words of Kryon. Eight years ago, we told you that there would be indigo leadership, and the potential was great. Go find it. Oh, it's there. There it is, and you did it. And what this should tell you is that even 8 years ago, the potentials of where you were going was seen clearly because they are so strong. And whereas there would be those who would say we can never have peace on earth, I will say to you, the potential is strong that you will. Let me paint the picture of the potentials, for you've earned that. Let me show you where it's going, for you've earned that. When you've arrived on this earth, every single one of you has a karmic imprint. It comes with the system. The ancients who explained karma to you are accurate. It is the system. It is the system of unfinished business. And it always will be. But in this energy, we also told you 20 years ago that you can void it. The system remains the system because the majority of humanity wishes it to remain. The majority of humanity is using it and will continue to, but you don't have to. 20 years ago, this was laughed at, scoffed at. 20 years ago, we said you could change your astrological imprint. Go look for it. We said that. That is how powerful the human being is in this new energy. Those things which imprint your personality with attributes where you think are you are all changeable. So today's teaching of mining the Akash, that is to say, going and getting the things that you have earned from what you have called another lifetime, are doable. You weren't always the astrological sign that you are now. How would you like to go pick up the one that better suits who you are today? And we say to you, it is doable. These are the things, the tools we predicted. These are the things that many of you will start learning, that were only for the ascended ones, for the masters, and here you are with the ability to do them. We have spoken of this many, many times. And my partner has put this together as I told him to, and will begin teaching this even in a more profound and finite way than he did today. You have to know it. It must belong to you. You must claim this, and I tell you why, because the light worker is going to need these tools to survive, to stay longer on the planet, to get out of fear and get out of drama, To forget expectations of things that have not seemingly manifested themselves. And I would like to tell you that when you drop all of those things, the things that you wish to manifest will arrive. Literally, it's the fear, it's the frustration, it's the combination of what you brought in with you that keeps you from opening the door. Those are the very things that when you get rid of them, manifest the things that you want. The things that you feel are coming or yours. Perhaps it is with the work that you feel that you're supposed to do, or the passions of the things that you have that you want to manifest in this part of your life. It's going to come with a change in you. A change we've talked about. You've got to maybe even become someone else. How about that? And these are the new tools in this time that we are beginning to teach. And I'm going to tell you that these things are going to be taught for a long time because there are many who need it and who need to hear it. And then there are those who say, well, what is going to happen in the future? Give us some ideas, Kryon. What's going to happen in the future? Where is this going? What are you going to say? What is the potentials? And here is where I'll give them to you. I'm going to give you the potentials in the next 2 generations. Now this is, by your calculations, approximately 50 years. I'm going to give you some of the potentials that are looming grandly and greatly. Regardless of what you think is going on this planet, the new consciousness human being is going to play a large part. Think of this: every child born is born with another imprint. The magnetic grid of the planet is doing that, for not only does it talk to your DNA, but it postures the energy of those being born. This is why the magnetic grid shifted at all. Millions of children growing up with a different consciousness than you have. When they begin to teach themselves, when they become the adults, you're going to see a shift and a change. And it's going to be one that might be interesting to you. It's not what you're going to expect. For there is even strife among them. And that is to say that they even will disagree about the proper way to bring compassion to the planet. Can you imagine that? Disagreements about how to bring passion to the planet. And compassion and different things. Integrity. Some will want to fast track it. We'll speak of that in a moment. So what we're trying to say is this, my partner, get this right, that there are issues even among them. And you will see strife even among them until that settles. Is that all that different from any new thing that comes to you? And the answer is no. I would like to take you back to Lemuria and tell you how long it took you as human beings in a start-up situation to even begin to understand things like honesty and integrity. They didn't come easy. They are not natural. They are essence and pieces of divinity in your DNA that have to then be manifested into the 3D thinking of humanity. You don't start that way. Animals don't start that way. They have to be learned. And you did. It took a long time. And here you are at another learning stage of evolution. It's going to take a while. And in the process, it isn't always going to seem like there's a synchronicity of sameness, of attitude, or a singularity of thought. Don't be startled by it. Let it unfold, for it will. And the truth will seek its highest level, and the things that should be on top will go there. And that's going to be the biggest difference between now and then. Let me tell you something. The first thing you're going to see in these next 2 generations change, and you never thought it would. And those who are hearing this say it's going to be impossible, and that is what we call basic human nature. How you treat each other. What you think about one another. What you think is correct and right. What's the first reaction? Drama, jealousy. A tempering of the things that are inappropriate in life. The pieces and the parts that you see in the children you wish you could undo, that you will point to and say, there is duality. There is human nature. I wish it weren't there. There'll come a day in 2 generations where it won't be. What about that? And that's going to be reflected in leadership eventually. And the leaders will be elected because of their compassion for those around them and their good ideas for those around them. And not because they're popular or charismatic, but because human nature will see other human nature issues within them that are correct and proper and accurate. It goes along with another one. Can you imagine a change in this? Common sense. You say, well, wait a minute, Kryon, common sense is common sense. No, it is not. It is your idea of what sounds good and must work right now in this consciousness. I will tell you this, that in 50 years, if you could attend some meetings of what they think common sense is, you'd be alarmed. It literally defies what you think is going to happen. Look at what has happened in the last 30 years in America. What you have been able to discuss, talk about, and change. What you've just done with your country, with the election that you have just achieved, against all odds. Now do it again, amplify it. And I will tell you this, that the whole idea of human nature and common sense is going to change. And so is the goal, the very goal of your being. A slow shift away from goal setting. For right now, you set your goal as a thing that you wish to achieve. And you're told by those in the self-help industry, if you want to get to where you're going, see yourself there. That's going to change. And you say, Kryon, well, what could it be? What could it be if we can't visualize what we wish to be? How about a society that is taught this? Careful, my partner, I want you to get this right. Goal setting, where a human being stands before himself and other human beings and says, I want my goal, where I end up, to be perfect in the scenario of synchronicity, whatever that is. Can you imagine how that fits into a society, into a culture, where human beings acknowledge from the get-go that they want to fit into the appropriate puzzle, which is that of creation. Goal setting, not a thing, but an energy. Goal setting, the energy of appropriateness, that's where you're headed. Could it be that human beings will come that far? Oh, human beings, look at what you've done in the last 30 years. Think of what you could do in the next 50. It is moving quickly. Human nature shifting. Common sense shifting. Goal setting shifting. Let me give you another one. Against all odds and thousands of years of history, even the spiritual attributes of what you call organized religion on the planet will start shifting and tempering itself. You don't have to look very far for you to understand that the major players of the planet, when you call organized religion, are in trouble. Because what they teach reeks with the old energy. It is not appropriate as seen by the young people. And that is why the young people are fleeing from those roles of church indeed. They're not seeing a reality in any of it. Doesn't ring with them as true. They're seeing it as old. Look for this, for it is imminent. Organized religion will begin to shift. Some of them even away from the mythology that they have been teaching for thousands of years, going to the core issues and finding truth that will attract the young people, that will make sense to the young people. Organized religion will thrive. But it's going to thrive with a core that has far more integrity than it's ever had. Many of you don't want to hear that. But this is the truth of it. A snapshot in 2 generations of all of those on the planet in their own religions and what they find to be appropriate and not appropriate is going to shift. I've said this before. Watch what the new Pope does. Kryon, there is no new Pope. Oh, really? It depends on when you read this. And when you do, and there is a new Pope, watch. For this individual is going to have to make massive change if they're going to keep their church. And they will. And they will. And when that man sits in the chair, and that man finds out what's next, massive change. Has to be, you know that. This is what is before you. And it has to do with cleaning up the integrity of all things within your society. What have you seen in the last 3 weeks? How many leaders have been brought down because of things discovered? Have you noticed? Is there something catchy going on with integrity issues? And the answer is yes. And it's about time. Let me tell you, there's 3 more that are shaking in their shoes. You'll see. It's time to call them on these things, is it not? And you're doing it. I'll say this because there are those who need to hear it, listening and reading. Do not fear what is going on in your country, Americans, at this point in time. I guarantee you that these things will pass, and there'll be a time when you look backward and say, thank goodness we did this. When there becomes an integrity base in these things, which are your core economic issues, you're going to grow an economy that makes sense. Right now, you are changing the rules, if you haven't noticed, in all fields. And whereas it seems to get worse and worse, you're trying to make up your mind what to do from moment to moment in order to save this and save that. Let me tell you, what you're doing is pruning them down. When they grow back, they're going to have integrity. They're going to work better. There'll be more jobs than ever. It's going to work. It's going to work. We should take a moment to say, this is what we saw. We told you. You can read it in the Kryon work. And we celebrate it. Can you? I'll say it again. I dare you to celebrate your recession. Can you? You get to get through it. You're going to get through it. History is going to treat it as a renaissance. There will be a name given to it, not yet heard, not yet given, which is like that. It is a renaissance of the American economy. It is a reboot. It is a start over. So significant will it be, it's going to shape the way you do business for the next 2 generations. Just in time to compete with the big one. 2 generations. By then, The biggest competitor on earth will have arrived for an economy. The one that will rival China. No matter what China does, no matter how many people, this one is going to rival it. There is an entire continent ready to be healed. It is rife with war at the moment and has been since you were born. It is sick at the moment, and it's not going to stay sick for long. Millions and millions of individuals. What happens when you heal a continent? It's about to be healed. And when it is, they're going to discover that they can build an economy as good as yours. Because you've set the standard. And they're going to start by looking at you. We're speaking of Africa. We're speaking of a potential of a group of states. Eventually that will emerge, called the African Union. A bigger conglomerate, even than the United States. Made and patterned in the same way. With an economy patterned in the same way. What you solve here is what they will see and begin with. They will not go through the gyrations of the 200 years like you did. They will see you and take from you what you teach them. A healed continent, no matter how many countries, is going to want what you have. They're going to want to have their own affluence. They're going to want to have their own banking. They're going to want to have all of the things that make a society grand and great. They're going to want to own their own lands and their own homes. And once you take millions and millions of people and they are not in survival, this is what they're going to do. Watch for it. It's inevitable. It's going to start happening while you're still here. Well, Kryon, you haven't addressed the big one. Terrorism. Like Kryon doesn't know it's here. I'll give you some information you didn't expect to hear. You're not going to beat terrorism with terrorism. You're not going to beat an old energy force with force. It isn't going to work. Try it. It'll fail every time. And here's how you're going to beat it. You're going to beat it with new consciousness. There'll come a time on this planet not too far from now where the very consciousness of the idea of terrorism will not be palatable to any human being, for they know better. That's common sense. Do you see what I'm saying? And it won't matter about a past religious prophet. For that past religious prophet will be seen in a whole nother light. There'll be more integrity in that religion than there ever has been before. There'll be a renaissance in that religion than ever before. They will see the beauty and the love of Muhammad. That is what is going to happen. But it isn't going to happen without light workers. We have an expression in your culture. My partner gives it to me. What happens under the hood, nobody sees. That's you. For the more light you put on this planet with what you know, touching the higher self, staying around longer, picking up the Akash, mining it, puts light on the planet for the rest of them to see. That's how it works. It is always how it's worked, and now we're starting to define it. So you will understand why you're here. Such a crux, a crossroad this is, such a cross of energies this is. And you're right in front of it, dear ones, and you are here for that reason, every single one of you. Listen, there are those in this room who have gone through horror in this last year. And I want to tell you, I know who you are. There is an expression Iron sharpens iron. Like the blacksmith who pounds the piece of iron while it's red hot so that it will become a tool when it cools. And the tool goes on to make other tools, and they make other tools. We know what you've been through. And we congratulate you for coming out on the other side of this with the light brighter than when you started. So much is here, so much we can say. I am knowing of my family, and they are here. I am knowing of the issues that are here. I am knowing of the potentials that are here. And so I say to you, dear human being who lives in 3D, take all of the dimensions and trust them. Trust the unseen. Do not paint the picture of what you think is there. Start now setting the goal of appropriateness. Putting yourself into that puzzle of synchronicity and saying, it is well where I end up. That's what the masters do. That's what the masters do. That is the message for this day. I cannot leave without telling you that this is so personal. When you push on that door to the higher self, whatever that means to you, when you sit alone with you and you finally push on that door, you're going to feel a family open up. You're going to feel a family flow into your life that's going to stay with you every moment, so that you're never ever alone, and you never feel alone, and you're never upset at being alone. And in that family, I reside. For I am family. And so it is.